All right, let's now bring in legal analyst Elton Hart to discuss this further. Elton, thank you so much for your time. So let's look at what we are possibly going to see, especially this week. I mean, Chifiwa Matodzi has already been sentenced to 15 years behind bars for his role in this brazen looting of billions of rands. His leaked affidavit has already painted a picture somewhat on the role played by many top politicians, etc. Just going into this case and this pre-trial conference or hearing, I mean, what does await Danny Msiza and his co-accused, and the implications, you know, just following that detailed witness statement by Matodzi?
Obviously, if one looks at the 77-page affidavit that Mr. Matodzi made available to the NPA in his 105 Big A plea agreement or plea bargaining with the state, when he was given then 15 years jail term. So one still needs to, he made those allegations, but one should treat it as allegations, although it's in the form of an affidavit, because the NPA still needs to come and prove each and every averment that implicates the accused persons in the matter, and obviously put additional evidence that actually links them to the actual looting. Because here in that affidavit, there's allegations that it was VBS employees, politicians, non-executives, and some other stakeholders in municipalities that was involved in the looting of these funds. But as it stands, the state still has to prove that the individuals who's implicated in that affidavit had a role to play in the looting of the funds that is now missing from VBS.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at, you know, given the due diligence, you know, that was conducted, you know, by the NPA and we were told, which probably led to Matodzi then, you know, entering into a plea. Let's look then at Msiza specifically. I mean, he has already been quoted as saying he was duped and was not a kingpin. The NPA's indictment, you know, says otherwise, alleging that Msiza was the central figure, in fact, between VBS and municipalities. So just looking at that, what are the likelihoods that he might just go Matodzi's route and enter into a plea of some sort?
I think normally the NPA operates on this basis that if you come and say, listen here, I admit my guilt, I give you less work to do, then obviously when the sentencing options is, they would like ask maybe for a lesser sentence because you cooperated. That's normally to show your sign of remorse for your actions that you've done in the past. But if you say, I didn't know anything and I'm pleading innocent, and the NPA has to go through the hard yards of actually proving that you were involved in the commission of the crime, but also not just involved, you were the kingpin, you were central, you were pivotal in actually executing this looting operation, then you must know they will ask for a maximum penalty against you. That's just how the NPA, and from where I look at it, he was sort of half a centerpiece in the alleged looting of the VBS funds, from reading Matodzi's affidavit and also the previous statements that was brought out by the NPA and their preliminary investigations.
You mentioned maximum sentence. What are we looking at here, Elton?
No, the thing is, like, was this is like a money laundering record. So it depends on, and this is now something that's dependent on the discretion of a judicial officer. So with Matodzi, we see that he got 15 years and he was cooperating. So these guys can get 20, 25 years depending on the nature of the allegations that can be proved against them, and also the number of offenses that can be proved against them with the various things. But normally, if you would go for one charge of money laundering on this scale, you can easily get 15 years, and obviously if additional charges follows, then you can climb to 20, 25 years, and maybe even sometimes longer, depending on the nature of what you get found guilty on.
Let's take a couple of steps back. I mean, tomorrow is supposed to be the pre-trial hearing. Just talk to us about that. What are we likely to see, and what are the key issues that are likely to be addressed during this pre-trial hearing? You know, just given the magnitude of the charges. I mean, over 100 charges the other accused are facing, and of course the likelihood that the former Chief Financial Officer, Philip Truta, is expected to be the star witness when it does go to trial.
No, indeed. What one needs to now look at tomorrow is a pre-trial hearing, and at the pre-trial hearing, it's basically administrative stuff that gets sorted out there. The parties will now come and say, okay, we're going to call 50 witnesses. From the state side, the defense say we will need so many, so that they can determine how many days they need to actually run the trial. So that they say we set the trial down, we let the witnesses run throughout, so that there is not unnecessary delays. You'll also look at, is all the attorneys being briefed and briefed financially as well? You look at also, do we need interpreters? So that's more or less an administrative process that is going to take place tomorrow to make sure that the matter is now trial ready. And then they allocate a trial date or trial dates. And thereafter, they will now start hearing evidence where the accused persons will now be asked to actually plea. And if they want to do plea explanations in terms of 115 of the CPA, they can then do that. But tomorrow we'll just, I think if we are in the court maybe for 2 hours, it would be very long, because it's literally the legal representatives in the state has most probably already spoken about certain administrative issues surrounding the trial. They need to just canvass it with the judge.
And just very quickly before I let you go, of course, this is a particular case that has had several, postponements and delays. What is the impact, on this particular case in terms of these delays, especially as one looks at the NPA investigations themselves and how we are likely to see more suspects being brought in?
No, indeed, and I think if there's still some suspects that needs to be brought in on the same matter, then I don't think even the thing can be trial ready, because you don't want to start with a trial and later on more suspects is added, then you have to start again afresh, because the suspects will have the right to a fair trial and actually also to actually cross-examine and tender evidence that rebuts whatever the witness is saying. So if the NPA is of the view that there's still witnesses or accused persons that needs to be added, they then need to first wait and say, listen, we're not trial ready yet. But if they are trial ready, they can proceed. But also for me, the delays, because we are already here that there's allegations that 2 of the witnesses that is supposed to testify was assassinated, and so the longer you delay, the possibility of your witnesses disappearing, becoming afraid to testify, it is also a reality, and actually making sure that your witnesses remain alive to come and actually testify in favor to prove that there was actual looting at VBS.
And I mean, this trial is many years in the making, Elton. On another matter, still with this particular case, the families of the 2 people who were assassinated, given the fact that, they blew the whistle on this particular case, they believe that, Matodzi's statement and also him entering into a pre-agreement lays the foundation then for law enforcement authorities to find the mastermind behind the pair's killers. I mean, what are we possibly looking at here? Would it perhaps be that some of these so-called masterminds of the assassinations are actually some of the suspects that are before the courts already? Or is that still also something that is under investigation?
No, I'm sure it's still under investigation, but there can also be a causal link between the people that's currently before court and the people that actually ordered the hit on the 2 former VBS employees. Because obviously, if you are being charged, there lies maybe some direct interest in you to say, I don't want this witness to come forward because he might implicate me. But it might also be that the witnesses that was assassinated could implicate even higher up officials that holds higher office, people that sits in positions of power, and for them not to stand before court, those 2 VBS employees were unfortunately assassinated, which could have been the link actually is making the case that the NPA can present to court a little bit stronger. But obviously they knew that if we eliminate some of the witnesses to come and testify of what they've seen, what they know, it might weaken the state's case. But I think the state will have to then just use other witnesses and follow other avenues in order for them to make sure that the charges that is put against these accused persons stick. But we should not just look at getting charges to stick. It must be that you get the right people who was responsible for the actual looting of the VBS funds.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. Elton, thank you so much for that. Of course, Elton Hart is a legal analyst there for us.